Coming up next on City Corner, we talk about the church's role in the community. Please stay tuned. Welcome to City Corner. I'm your host, Melanie Adams. Today, we're talking about the church's role in the community. And joining me now are two outstanding pastors who are working to help make St. Louis a better place. First, we have Pastor Anthony McCaa, who is the pastor of the New Church, and Pastor Frederick McCullough, pastor of Wayman AME Church. Thank you for being here.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Well, first, I want to talk a little bit about how, I guess, you were both brought to my attention. First, starting with Pastor McCaa. I think the work that you've been doing in the community has been recognized, and I think one of your parishioners or a friend actually recommended you.
Correct. Yes, our Director of Publications, Sister Reagan Johnson,
Yes.
Who works extensively in our area of marketing and community outreach, thought it would be a good idea that we come here today.
Well, and it's always good to see your work recognized, so I think that's
It's
wonderful. And then with Pastor McCullough, I think I saw you in a video. Is that correct?
That is correct. The Delmar Divide video, yes.
And tell us a little bit, what was the Delmar Divide video for the one or two people that haven't seen it yet?
The Delmar Divide is a discussion about the disparities between geographically close places in the city that have a major divide economically and ultimately otherwise, and just speaks to the perhaps the racial tint of why that divide is the way it is.
Right. Well, I think, and that's a great segue in, because I think it's really important, I guess generally, first of all, before we talk about your individual churches, to talk a little bit about what you think the role of the church should be in the community, just kind of in general, and how you see the church should interact with the community. And we can start with Pastor McCaa.
Well, I think that the church, and particularly the local church, should make a point to have community involvement. I think that is done best first when the inner community, the faith community at the church level is strengthened and impacted and imparted to the need to be concerned about the existential plight of humanity. I think that because we are Christians, the church, and particularly at my church, I believe that Christ himself even had a mission of community involvement. Christ was a liberator when he said, I come that you might have life. I come that you might have breath. And so I think with that, I think that the church should concern themselves with presence in the community. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And how would you answer that?
I agree with Pastor McCaa. Also, I'd like to say that in reality, there is no church if the church is not in community. It really just becomes a gathering place for like-minded individuals who like to give themselves a moral lift on Sunday morning or wherever they may gather, as opposed to coming to church not just to shout, not just to worship, but to also get a fellowship, yes, but also get instruction so that we can go out as the ecclesia into the world, that we might be able to bring hope and to bring answers to questions to everybody's everyday living. Church cannot be church until the church is in the community.
Well, as St. Louis, as with most areas around the country, there has been a lot of change in communities through the decades, not just through the years. But how does the church respond to those changes? Because you'll see a new type of congregation, or you have to kind of make adjustments. So how do you make changes based on your community needs?
I think that's an excellent question. First and foremost, I think a great church is one who has the ability to analyze the needs of the community. In particular, in our community, we currently reside on the south side of St. Louis. Our church didn't start there. We started about 8 years ago, and now we're able to purchase a building on the south side of St. Louis. And what we have noticed since we've been there is that there has been a disparity in jobs. Okay. A lot of our community neighbors are hurting financially, not necessarily because they don't want to work, but they have not been afforded the opportunity to be able to be successful with that. And with that being said, our church currently has made a mission this year to tackle that by way through our CDC that we're starting to create avenues, first of all, to do job training, make sure that their skill sets, they're able to interview correctly, they know how to professionally prepare a resume, and moving forward, and also trying to open up those doors. I myself am an entrepreneur other than pastoring, and so we have an entrepreneur connection that we're trying to engage the church with as well. But we only know that because we've analyzed and assessed the needs of our community. So,
Pastor McCullough?
Yeah, yes, and in doing that also, there is a realistic need when we look at churches that are providing a relevant message, is because they're staying on their assessments of what needs to happen in that community. There are churches, however, who have been caught up in the height of their history, which is caught up in yesteryear, and they glory in the former days. And I just believe that your latter days should be greater than your former days. And part of that has to be an ongoing mission of just participating in seeking the needs of those who have no voice. The church has to be a voice for the voiceless. We took on a task of trying to come down against the payday lending.
Yes.
And we also took on the task of trying to get on the ballot with the initiative of increasing the minimum wage in this state. And those are issues that we stood by and we stand by, because for me, it's a detriment to be able to preach that God will take care of you on Sunday, and yet you have predatory lending going on where they cannot get traditional loans and have to get caught up in loans for payday lending and things of that nature. And the church has to make a stand. We just need to make a stand. And I think those churches that remain relevant can therefore declare with a prophetic voice what thus says the Lord in a way that people can appreciate.
Right, and you stole my word. I was going to say relevant, and I think that's exactly what both of you are describing here, is how can your churches remain relevant in your communities? And I know one big issue in terms of churches, and I think just organizations in general, is really attracting young people. So how do you engage young people in your communities who may not say, well, I don't go to church or I don't do that, but you do so many other things. So what are your outreach to young people?
I think, first of all, we have to understand what reaches young people. I always have a problem at my church with the older generation because I am a young man.
Right.
And so, there are different types of pastors. Some pastors are called to a church. Right. Some pastors are itinerant. I happen to be one of those pastors who started our ministry. And so because of that, I think initially, the character of the church was erected based off my personality, young man, young professional. And so that never was a really problem with me because I was always speaking directly to that. But the way that we maintain them, I think the victory in that is that now we don't only have young people coming to church seeking religious practices, but we have people who are discerning real relationship with Christ and thus being effective in the community and being effective with their own personal lives. So my challenge is not necessarily to reach them because that comes by nature of my age. My challenge is, okay, you're a young person, how can you be effective? And I think that comes with, first of all, understanding their issues, speaking directly to their issues. There are certain messages that have to be tailored to speak directly to their needs. And so I seek out those type of things and I try to preach and speak directly to those. Another thing, one thing I've learned about young people, that they just simply don't like to be in church all day.
Right.
When I grew up in a background, you went to church, Sunday school, you went to worship, you went to the afternoon choir day, you went to Sunday
dinner,
night. So at our church, we're 90 minutes. We're 90 minutes, and they understand that once it started going to minute 91, they tap in their head. No, not literally. But I think in order to be relevant, because we're fighting a lot of things. We're fighting social media. We're fighting internet church. We're fighting televangelists. And so you got to get them, and you have to be pointed, direct, and be honest, and have some integrity with your message and with your living.
One of the things that have helped us is a realization that you have to invest in young people, and not just a financial investment, but investment of time and concern and care. I was taught a long time ago, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And we try to put that in our young people. And one of the things I really am excited about is our Tuesday night open gym, where we have anywhere from 50 to 60 brothers from the neighborhood that come and just simply play basketball from 5 to 8 o'clock. Some of those have transferred that time from Tuesday to also coming back on Sunday. We make sure that we invest in our kids in terms of taking them and getting some knowledge beyond the church. We took a group of kids down to Memphis,
Civil Rights Museum?
to the Civil Rights Museum, and just to try to make up the difference that they perhaps are not getting in school. And one of the personal joys I had is when one of our students, one of the members of the church in his class, he wrote about what he's learning at church and tried to apply that to leadership for what he wanted to be and what he wants to do in life. So I think that once we invest in our children, just like with anything, if you invest any time, I think that kids and young people will be attracted to what you're doing.
Right. Well, and it sounds like, I think the message really is this isn't your parents' church. Not in a derogatory way, but I think a lot of times what happens is, young people may think it's more of the 8-hour service. It's nothing that's relevant to me. It's a Sunday only opportunity. But I think you really show, even with the Tuesday evening programs, that's an entryway in. Not everyone's entryway in is Sunday school or Sunday morning at 11. The entryway in is Tuesday. And I think by providing those entryways, that really helps to broaden your reach in the community. And coming up next, after the break, we're going to continue to talk with the pastors, and we're going to talk specifically about their churches and learn a little bit more about the programs they provide for the community. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to City Corner. Today we're talking about the church's role in the community. Joining me is Pastor McCaa of the New Church and Pastor McCullough of Wayman AME Church. Well, in continuing our discussion, we were talking about the church's role in the community, and really I think what we were talking about was really how the church's role has changed over time based on your constituency, the neighborhood, and kind of where you're working. And one of the things I wanted to make sure I did was to give each of you the opportunity to talk specifically about a program within your church that you're really proud of, something that you think has really worked well and has really done well with the community. So we'll start with Pastor McCullough.
I arrived at the church about a year ago, and so there are a lot of redeveloping ministries that we're trying to implement. One thing that I'm really excited about is our plan to create an adult daycare center at the church, which will provide a safe haven and a place for our seniors in the area. Also, in collaboration with that, we are also working with the area council of the Boy Scouts to, again, provide an outlet for training young men to become trained in taking responsibility for their lives and their community. We have an ongoing working relationship with the Better Family Life, and particularly Brother James Clark,
yes.
who we are trying to just solidify some more programs. But in as much as we have tried to do those pieces in our implementing new programs, one thing I'm really excited about was as we try to teach a liberation gospel and teach that God is the giver of grace, what we do find is there are persons who get put out of or who are released from prison but cannot find a place to work.
Right.
One of the joys I have is to be able to counter that and to be able to assist people who otherwise were not able to be hired, but to be able to come on board and be a part of us at the church, working their way through the things that they've done in their past, but working with the hope that will provide them with a place in the future, the present and the future. And so I'm excited about that particular piece in terms of the outreach, collaborating with, just working with the Clergy Coalition, of course, and other entities, the Missouri Conference of the AME Church. We always, by being part of a connection body, we do indeed have a larger scope that we are participating in. But particularly, I do enjoy the fact that as I see the church growing in numbers, I do see that a lot of young persons and young families are responding well to what we're trying to do at the church, investing our time, investing our care. This past summer, we did a summer reading program. We collaborated with the Cabinet Branch, the library, Cabinet Branch Library of City of St. Louis, and that just was an awesome piece because not only were they learning to read and being promoted by reading, we wanted to also give them an incentive, financial incentives, which the church really got behind. And so we want to broaden that to make it a year-long reading program so that we can help see reading scores and things of that nature go up. And the final thing, we have just adopted Sherman Elementary School.
Oh, Sherman, yes.
And over the holiday, of course, we worked with Angel Tree Ministry. We worked with again, Better Family Life. And we worked with Sherman Elementary School, providing help to about at least 50 families to make sure that their holiday season
Now, Sherman's on the south side.
It's on the south
They couldn't
side.
find you a north school?
They were already taken.
Oh, okay. I was
And
like,
so
Sherman's over by
when
me.
when the superintendent meets with clergy every month, and so
Everyone
there was
jumped on the north schools.
So I wanted the church to do something.
Right.
And even though it's not in our immediate neighborhood,
Right.
they're still part of our community.
Right. No, that is very true, and I'm sure Sherman appreciated
Yes, indeed, they do.
appreciated it. And Pastor McCaa, we're going to try and get some of your images up here so you can talk a little bit about your programs. And there was one in particular that you sounded very excited about.
Well, yes. I think what I'm most excited about is that this year we have made a covenant agreement with our leadership team and also with the church that we're going to be intentional about community involvement. Because a year will go by and you talk about it, but then before you know it, it's gone. And so we are week in and week out becoming intentional about our community involvement. That was pictures from last year. We partnered with the Urban League, Young Blacks Give Back, and we was at the Grace Hill Settlement House, and we were just scattering seeds, and that was a very fun event for us. That right there, we just told everybody in the community, come on, get fed on us.
Oh, so community
free
dinner.
Meal. Yeah, community dinner. No strings attached. That's me serving. Right after I got a chance to preach. This is a good outreach effort for all pastors, especially those who say, I just don't have any money. Look here, free food, free car wash. Of course, your food is going to be hot dogs and chips, but free food, free hot dogs. And a lot of people came out. That's how we got initiated our community. That's our blood drive that we was able to do and for partnering with the Red Cross. And we were giving away items to kids there, and so we partnered with Kids Mart.
Oh, yeah.
Pack up the
So school supplies and
school
things.
supplies. That's just us being cheerful as we got into the. That's me at the
Missouri Black
Missouri
Expo.
Black Expo.
Yes.
Thank you. Doing the opening prayer. I forgot what that was. Yeah, the Missouri Black Expo. Doing the opening prayer. But as I said, we're being intentional about our outreach, and as I said, we have assessed the needs of our community as jobs. And so on February the 16th, we have our first inundation in the community dealing with jobs by having a job readiness workshop. Okay. We're partnering with several companies. They're going to come in, professionals going to come in, review resumes, give quick lectures on how to prepare. I'm just trying to get the ball rolling. And making sure that
what age is that up to?
Age is from 18 and
Okay.
up. 18 and up. Saturday, February the 16th from 9 to 1. Okay. And you can register on our website. as well at www.thenewchurchstl.org. But just preparing young people, or preparing anyone actually for the workforce, making sure that everything is up to par, just really trying to tackle that issue of jobs, make sure that we have the knowledge base. The text says that the people perish for the lack of knowledge, and we want to make sure that we have all our things in place so that people can be effective in terms of going after job search. There's also going to be entrepreneurs there with potential openings at their local businesses that could potentially hire some of the people for jobs. And so that's really what we're aiming for in February.
And one of the things that both of you have spoken about, which I think is also a change from a lot of churches in the past, is you talk a lot about collaboration. And I'm not just talking about the Clergy Coalition, you're talking about collaborating with a lot of organizations that normally you wouldn't think that churches would be collaborating with, or it's not a natural tie. So can you talk a little bit about some of your collaborations and how they've worked and where you hope they'll lead to in the future?
Serving with the Clergy Coalition, I serve as the Economic Development Chairperson. And what that has allowed me to do is to also collaborate with other entities like McCaa, especially on this issue dealing with the cortex and making sure that we have representative numbers for minorities and women. I think that, again, the church, for what I said earlier, the church is not church until it becomes a part of the community. Being in fellowship with other Christians is a good thing. God bless it. Amen. But the call for us is to reach beyond the walls. And so we've had pleasure not only working with Clergy Coalition and McCaa, but we've also been able to partner with some other things dealing with social justice and being able to be called at the office of the senator and things of that nature. And I think just being here a year, just all the things that have happened in that year's time, I think it's a blessing to be able to say, okay, I can't do it alone right here on 5010, and I can't do it just within the confines of the denomination or within the religion of Christianity, but to say that this brother, this sister who may not know Christ, but still needs the help from those of us who know Christ, and thus by doing that, they may come to know Christ for themselves. And I think that's the role of the church. Not to proselytize, but just to set an example of we care for you. We're not, because I think the church really has a bad image here in this time, especially when you look at mega churches and this, that, and the other, or even the smaller churches. One of the things I really don't like about the physical piece of our church is that it has bars on the entrances. And you see that, and the message that I look at that the people in the community see is that we don't want you here, and we don't trust you. And that's why most churches in the city have people driving in to make up and fill up those churches. And I think we have to change that message. Take down the bars that are on our minds, on our hearts, and on our spirits, and take down the bars that are on our buildings and say we're working together, and we're going to do all that we can for you.
Pastor McCaa, your collaborations and partnerships?
I think the stereotype that our ministry seek to destroy is that the church is an entity that cannot work with anyone but themselves. And I think we value partnerships because it's a method of exchange. It gives an ethical message, and it also sends a communal message. Community is about people. And so what we can't do by ourselves, or what the little that we can do by ourselves, we can do that much greater when we collaborate with other people. A lot of times the church is dealing with financial issues, and we use those, and pastors use those as an excuse. It's really not an excuse, because there are several organizations out there that are trying to reach a broader audience, and they just need some foot soldiers. And I think that's a good place for the church to start, especially for those churches who may be struggling financially or may not even have the knowledge base yet to get on track. So I think it's beautiful in a sense, because it allows community, and then it allows you to impact more than what you possibly can impact at your own church.
And both of you are fairly young ministers in terms of, creating your church 8 years, which isn't a long time in the ministry business, and you've only been here a year. But I guess, if you had a crystal ball and you were looking into the future, where do you hope to see each of your churches in the next 3 to 5 years and their role in the community?
As we set up and further develop our Wayman Community Development Corporation, I hope to see us dealing with housing issues. We get calls every day at the church about people who need housing. I hope that we'll see us effectively educating people on HIV/AIDS. We're the fastest group of people in our community, especially among women. I like to see our education of our children just be able to, we're on the basis of trying to develop a charter school ourselves. And so we hope that we'll begin to set an entity in place where we see the education of our children go much further beyond where it is right now. And also the retention, recidivism. We hope to recount that those persons that are coming out of prison, but because they have a lack of opportunity, they wind up going back to prison.
And I think we're going to go to Pastor Mistake just quickly to wrap it up. Where would you see your church?
I want our church to have this mantra: you can like us, you can hate us, but you never can say that you haven't heard about us. And so that's where we want.
Well, we will close on that note. I would like to thank both of our guests here, not only for your time, but also for the work you do in the community. And please join us again next time on City Corner.